I've talked about GoldenEye a number of times already, and in spite of having aged poorly, it's still a historically significant title, especially in my realm, which is largely old games that nobody plays anymore. So I figured it'd be a good idea to do a video on some of the more obscure Gameshark codes like I did with Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. So here we go. Now the first thing I looked for was an anti-aliasing code, and sure enough, there is a code to disable the anti-aliasing. Of course, it's still a low-resolution game, but thankfully this manages to make the game look less blurry and smeared. I do kinda wish that this was just an option for most N64 games, to be perfectly honest. Some games had the option built in and accessible by default, like I think Quake 64 for example, but the vast majority of them do not. So you have to use unconventional methods such as this. Unfortunately, there's no way to unlock the frame rate, not that it would make any real difference at all. I mean, it's GoldenEye. There is, however, a code to see debug statistics within the game, and among those statistics is the frame rate. The labels seem to be slightly unclear and misleading, but from what I've deduced, Hertz refers to the actual number of frames rendered per second, and the frames number is 60 Hz, the typical refresh rate of North American displays, divided by that number. If I had to guess, the intention is likely to determine how long each frame stays on the screen to ensure proper frame pacing. In any case, I knew what I had to do next. I had to turn on some in-game cheats and see just how low I could bring the frame rate. I know this game was notorious for low frame rate, but it was nice to stress test it and put some actual numbers to it. Under normal circumstances, the game runs around 15 to 20 FPS, which is already pretty low. But if you turn on invincibility and lure all the enemies into a single cluster in the jungle level, it goes way lower. I think the lowest I was able to reach was 4. Now that's legendary. For the record, I don't think the anti-aliasing has any measurable effect on the frame rate judging from what I've seen. At this point, even if having anti-aliasing on would impact the frame rate further, it would be a masochistic endeavor. Lastly, I discovered that the game has an extremely extensive debug menu. Now that's cool. Unfortunately, it's next to impossible to read because it flickers on the screen like insanity. Also, the grand majority of these debug features were intended for an N64 development kit, meaning that unless you're playing on one, which you almost definitely aren't, it will either do nothing or it will crash the game. But as for the ones that work, well, you can make the map disappear, and you can do this. Wow. That's about it for this one. Obviously there are more out there, but these are some of the more obscure ones that I found interesting, as usual. Thank you for watching.